Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make some delicious rhubarb and ginger jam that is my mum's absolute favourite. It's actually really easy to make. I'm going to take you through all of the steps. If you don't have a sugar thermometer, do not worry. I will show you a little trick at the end so you know how and when your jam is done and ready to jar up. If you miss any of the steps or any of the quantities, then have a look in the description and I've got all the information there for you. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you know when my next video is coming up. To make this jam, you want roughly 450 grams of rhubarb or a pound of rhubarb. And what I've done here is I've just chopped off the ends and I've got rid of any of the impurities here, and I have just washed them thoroughly and dried them too. For this recipe, you want to cut your pieces of rhubarb into about 1.5 centimetre pieces, roughly ½ inch. I know it's pedantic, but I do use a tape measure, or you could use a ruler, and I always score the first one down. And then I use that as a basis so I know how to cut the other pieces into the same size. If you get any stringy bits like this, then you just want to make sure that you do remove them from the rhubarb. If you get to a piece like this and it's hollowed out in the centre, you do want to remove those bits and then weigh what was here and replace it with some rhubarb that doesn't have the hole in it. You then want to place 450 grams or a pound of granulated sugar or caster sugar, or you can get the special sugar that you have added pectin into it. You then need to add all your rhubarb pieces into the sugar, and you want to add 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. If you're using sugar that has got added pectin, then you do not need to add the lemon juice. You want to give this a really good stir so all of the sugar is coated with the rhubarb. To make a variation, I'm going to be adding 1 teaspoon of ginger into the mix to make rhubarb and ginger jam. If you don't have any ground dried ginger to add, then what you could always add is 2 to 3 tablespoons of finely diced preserved or crystallized ginger, and it will have the same effect. Make sure when you add this ginger that you do really stir it into all of the fruit and the sugar. Cover with cling film and leave for about 2 hours. So I've let my rhubarb sit with the sugar and the lemon for just over 2 hours. And if you see here, if I just do a close-up, that it has drawn out all of the water from the rhubarb, as rhubarb actually has a really high water content. So it's time now to make the jam. The first thing that you want to do is just place all of the rhubarb and the sugar that's been marinating in the ginger into a large preserving pan. You want to heat this up on a low to medium heat, and what you're going to do first is you want to dissolve all of this sugar. So that's the very first stage before you do anything else. It's really important that you do melt the sugar over low to medium heat. You'll know that it is melted when you won't be able to feel a scraping sound almost from the back of the spoon to the bottom of the pan when you stir it. And once that scraping noise is gone, then you know that the sugar's been dissolved. You'll also be able to feel it in between the spoon. So once you have dissolved the sugar, you then want to bring it up to a ferocious boil, and you want to boil it until it is set. You want to boil this until it goes slightly firm. You really want to get one of these thermometers. It says exactly the temperature that the jam needs to get to when it is perfect. So it's just above 100 degrees Celsius or 220 degrees Fahrenheit. So you want to put this into the mixture and just let it rest there and just watch the temperature. And as soon as it gets to the setting jam point, then you want to take it off the heat and add it into your jars. Every now and again, you do want to give it just a slight little stir just to make sure it is not burning or sticking on the bottom of the pan, because that would be disastrous. If you don't have a thermometer and you're not sure if your jam is ready or not, alternatively, what you could do is just place some of the mixture onto a plate, let it cool just slightly, and then run your finger up the middle, and if it doesn't come back, you know that that is done. Now for the tricky bit, because these jars are really hot. So obviously I've washed and cleaned them, but I've put them into a really hot oven just to sterilize even further. So you want to get some of your jam, ideally using a pointed spoon, pour in your jam into the jars, try not to get it onto the edges. It's better if you use a pointed spoon like this, as it helps it go in a lot easier. You want to fill it pretty much up to the top, and then being very careful, because again it will still be hot, you want to wipe off any excess that's spilled over the jar. You want to try and give it a general tap down to make sure that the jam is thoroughly all in the jar and it goes right to the bottom. If you've got them, you want to place a waxed paper disc down onto the top, and you want the wax side going face down onto the jam like so. You can normally buy these at general stores, or you could definitely buy them online, which is a lot easier, as that's what I do. You could always, if you don't have any of those, and I use this for extra caution, is I use this disc here, this plastic disc. I press it over and I get an elastic band and I tie that over the top also. This is just to prevent any bacteria getting in and causing any mold that could happen if it's left in a damp storage, and you know, you come to eat your jam and then there's mold on, which is just not what you want. Once you've done that, you then want to place your lid firmly into the jar. Again, this jar is really hot, so it's quite difficult to do. And there we have it, some really easy rhubarb and ginger jam. If you don't like ginger, then you can remove the ginger when you are letting the rhubarb and the sugar soak, so that's absolutely no problem. This makes roughly 1 jar and some little pots. If you want to make more, obviously double up the ingredients. I'm going to now go and sit down and have a piece of this beautiful jam on toast, as that is how I love it. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions or comments, make sure you leave one and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I will see you in my next video.